Up+Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up+Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up+Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Happy Friday. Thank you for being Up+Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. Appreciate you being here so much. It is Friday. So glad the weekend is here. This was a show that taught us how to smize, how to pose, and how to chase the dream of being fierce. But behind the iconic makeovers, the runway meltdowns, and Tyra's legendary one-liners, America's Next Top Model was hiding something much darker. The kind of show that made you believe it was changing lives. But for many of the contestants, it did. It just not in the way anyone expected. Later in the show, we're going to be talking to Bridget Armstrong. She's an award-winning journalist, host of the podcast Curse of America's Next Top Model. And she is peeling back the glossy layers to reveal the trauma, the contracts, the body shaming, and the question everyone's now asking, did Tyra Banks create a platform for empowerment or straight exploitation? Don't miss this conversation. It's coming up in just a few. I'm excited to chat with Robin Coleman first. I want to get right into it. Robin Coleman, she is my favorite part of finding forever homes for dogs, even cats. She is from the Woods Humane Society. It is our pet of the week. Mowgli, I believe, is the pet of the week. Robin, it is great to chat with you. Thank you for being Up+Adam.
Hey, good morning, Adam.
Great to chat with you. How is your week gone? How you doing?
Week's going good. We're on a good roll with our pets of the week, so I'm hoping to keep it going. You remember last week we had the cute little puppy with the curly ears that we loved. He got adopted. He's in a home. He's got a doggy brother and a family, and he's already got his first update that he's doing great. So I've got another cute ear dog for you today named Mowgli. Much bigger than last week's pet of the week. He is just about 11 months old, probably a shepherd, maybe husky mix, but he's already 70 pounds. So this is a big boy. He's just a big old puppy trying to figure out like how to move that big body. He thinks he's like a 10-pound lap dog. So, but he also has impressive ears, but opposite. His are straight up. He's got big old shepherd ears. He is going to hear every single noise probably. So he's gonna hopefully be a good listener, but he already knows sit, and he is just like most shelter dogs, bored, needs out of his kennel, learning how to walk on leash, learning how to be a good boy. And he's up on Instagram and Facebook, so you can check out his cute derpy face. He's got a total derpy dog look to him, and we think he is just so cute. But a big boy, gonna need some training. Has had doggy friends at Woods, but would really love to get this good-looking pup out of the shelter and into a loving home. And that's our pet of the week, Mowgli.
Yeah, a really, really cute dog. And like you said, his ears are huge. I think he like comes with free Hulu or cable or like satellite or something.
Built-in antenna, antenna for sure.
So Wiggle Waggle is coming up. What else is happening with Woods? Or should we talk Wiggle Waggle? I mean, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, let's talk Wiggle Waggle. It is the biggest dog party on the Central Coast, and this is for all dog lovers, whether you have a dog, whether you want to come with your dog. But really, it has become a big dog party out at Woods in San Luis Obispo. We partner with the county shelter. We've got a bunch of fun activities and, of course, those very popular Santa Paws photos that you can get. But really, that costume contest has become a really big, popular event. So you can pre-register on our website for the different costume contests. We have best kids costume, best small dog, best big dog, and then kind of the best duo or group. A lot of people have gotten really creative with the themed group costumes. So fun prizes, fun costume contests. But if you're anything like my friends, when we decide if we're going to go to an event, we're always looking to see what food is going to be there. So we've got some really great food this year. So come hungry. We've got Old Slow Barbecue Taco Truck, the Grinning Bear, Paradise Shaved Ice, and they do whole huge pup cups for dogs with all kinds of goodies. We've also got our wonderful volunteers do a great bake sale, waffle on a stick, which is a new vendor. And then we've got fun pet fair, kids activities. We've got an animal communicator out there, that big stuffed animal pile that dogs love to run into. We're also going to be doing half price adoption. So really a fun, free community event. We have things that we will be selling and you can purchase and donate, but it is a free community event, fun for the family. We are looking for dogs that are comfortable being around lots of people, lots of other dogs. So if your dog is that social butterfly, bring them on out to Woods Wiggle Waggle Fall Festival. More information on our website, woodshumane.org. And please follow and share on Facebook and Instagram. It really does help us do more at Woods and truly save more lives.
We got the links in the show notes. Check out. We'll see you at the Woods Wiggle Waggle Fall Festival, woodshumane.org. Robin Coleman. She is our favorite part about finding forever homes for dogs, even cats. We love your work, Robin. Thank you so much. And appreciate you being Up and Adam.
Of course. Thanks, Adam.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, mucho thank yous to the one and only Robin Coleman. Before we get into our chat with Bridget Armstrong, reminding you October in San Luis Obispo, it is anything but ordinary. It is Arttober. From live performances to public art, museums, and the always great piano in the plaza, creativity is everywhere, all around you. Don't miss it. Find your Arttober adventure at slowcity.org/Arttober. All right, she is an award-winning journalist, a sharp pop culture commentator, and the host of one of the most talked about investigative podcasts in years, Curse of, America's Next Top Model. Now, with a background that spans NPR, Vox, The Skim, Bridget Armstrong has spent over a decade helping us see culture more clearly. And now she's taken us behind the curtain of one of the most iconic and controversial reality shows of our time, America's Next Top Model. From the trauma behind the tears to the lifelong scars behind the smize, she's asking the question a whole generation never knew they needed to ask. What did we really sign up for when we were tuning in every week? I'm thrilled to welcome her to the show, Bridget Armstrong. Thank you so much for being Up and Adam.
Thanks for having me.
So we grew up watching America's Next Top Model thinking it was a golden ticket, right? An overnight catwalk to fame. But now, 20 years later, we're hearing stories that feel more like cautionary tales than fairy tales. What's a moment from your investigation that made even you say, wait, how did we all cheer for this back then?
I think certainly looking at some of the body shaming that happened on the show, they weighed the contestants on screen for 4 seasons, the first 4 seasons. And that was when I was in it deep. I was in high school. It was my favorite show. I got my hair cut like Eva. I loved it, right? And I do, I heard the conversations that are happening 20 years later about like, oh, these were really terrible on women's bodies. They were really brutal. But for some reason, that didn't stick in my head. And when I went back to watch the show and I'm like, wow, this contestant who's 5'10" and weighs 130 pounds was told she was fat and then sent home. That's what I was watching when I was 16 years old. Those were the things that I was internalizing. And that's some of the stuff that I'm like, I don't know how I watched this then and how I continued to watch for season and season and season after that.
Yeah, Tyra was once like the role model, the trailblazer, the queen of fierce. But your podcast raises a bold question. Was she also the architect of something perhaps deeply harmful? You think Tyra was a villain by design or a product of the exact same system she ended up literally enforcing?
I think that's such a good layered question. I do think she, in part, was a product, right? I think some of the messaging she got, you have to think Tyra went into modeling when she was 17. So that's what she'd been doing at the point where Top Model premiered. She's almost 30, right? So she'd been doing that for her entire adult life. So she certainly internalized those messages that she got from the industry. And the show was supposed to be a look behind the scenes, a peek into the world of modeling and what it takes to become a model. And so I think Tyra brought some of those harmful messages with her to the show. But I also think she wanted to have a really good, successful show, right? And what do people want to see on reality TV? We want to see people struggle. We want to see people cry. We want to see people fail. It makes it good. And so to do that, she had to sort of inflict these things on these models. What makes it scary and sad is that a lot of these models were really, really, really young, impressionable girls who were looking to Tyra as this person who was going to, like you say, give them this golden ticket, who was going to like be their way into the industry. But instead, they were sort of just used as props for a TV show. And that's not what they thought they were signing up for.
Yeah. A reality show often offers a prize, fame, a contract, a dream fulfilled, right? But what's rarely shown is what happens in this case after the runway, the trauma, the aftermath. From the contestants you spoke with, what did winning or even just being on the show, what did it cost them personally?
Well, I think, we've talked about the issues with bodies. I've talked to contestants, winners, who said they came onto the show confident and left with body dysmorphia or eating disorders because of the things that were said to them on that show. I talked to a winner, a contestant who left and was broke. It literally cost her a lot of money to be a model. She left the show. She won, but she was in one of the seasons where they didn't offer a $100,000 monetary prize. They only offered you a contract and agency representation, but it didn't come with money. So she left the show. She found out her portfolio wasn't usable. So she had to go take all these other photos that she was being charged for. She had to do all of these events and she had to be looking fabulous. So she was being sent all these amazing designer pieces that she had to pay for. And so she was living on a couch. She won top model and she was living on a couch the first year or so because she was broke. I found models who, which was interesting. One thing I found was that there were people who came on the show who were doing some modeling before they came on the show. They weren't top models. That's not something they showed on the show a lot because we were supposed to believe that Tyra had taken these girls from nothing. Mm-hmm. She's going to make them into something. But some of them, they weren't top models, but they were getting some work. And it ruined their professional reputation because they went on the show and they were made out to be the villain or the wild one. Or they were then turned into a joke. You're not a real model anymore. You're a reality star. And the early years, there was no lane for reality TV stars yet, right? Like you were just kind of like a person who was on a show who did some weird stuff. So for a lot of them, it cost them their professional career. It cost them their confidence. Some of them still have the emotional scars from that show to this day.
You talk about something like, I remember a couple years ago, the couple that won like a Paradise or Bachelor. It was the pilot or the tennis dude. I think it was the tennis dude. And then you read about like him and the girl like living with her roommate. Like you're just like, wait a minute, this was not, I don't know, I thought you won this whole damn thing. And it's interesting because like you look at these shows, are they supposed to give you a more charmed path to where the prize that your eye is on, in this case modeling, or is it a less charmed path where fuck, it would have been easier to do this on my own?
Well, that's the appeal of these competition reality shows, right? Like that's a formula to all these shows. You get a person who's a big deal, who can like say, okay, Tyra Banks is going to be the one to make your dreams come true. And then you say, you don't have to, go to New York, stomp the pavement, go to all the agencies, get all the rejections, or worse, go to these pay for play modeling agencies that used to be around back in the day. I don't know if you remember those. They would come to your town and be like, come downtown for this audition.
Yeah, John Michael Powers or like
exactly
whatever.
Those types, right? Like this thing, if you can come on this reality show and prove yourself, you'll have a ticket. You'll be able to skip all that stuff. And so that was the appeal. That's why people did it. But behind the scenes, I certainly don't think that was the case because so few of the models who were on ANTM actually became these top models. Some of them worked, right? Like they got work, but they maybe could have done that by sending in some really great photos to an agency, right? But I do think it gave some folks a charmed path into entertainment, right? Like there are models who they didn't necessarily go on to become supermodels, but they're on TV. They're actors. They're in movies. They're hosts. And there are a few of those who I think certainly being on the show gave them that platform to do that.
How much has social media changed the game? I was just talking to another a gal in this business, also a stand-up comic recently, which we were talking about how social media has changed like modeling, stand-up comedy. Oh, the one was a gal who's she's a big famous person with food. Lindsay Eats on social. So she's got a cookbook. And even that game, even that circle, that ecology has changed because of social media. I mean, music, it's like, oh yeah, you want to be in a band, get signed by a label? Let's look at your social media. How many followers you got? It's like, well, damn, what happened to just playing good music? How much is these girls, and sure, sometimes guys too, their social media ecology off the bat? To get in the modeling game, do you already have to have 5 years of thirst traps and fashion things and working with local clothiers? I mean, do you already have to have that baked in before you'll even get considered?
Absolutely. I mean, I think some of the models who were on the first season of Top Model would have loved to even have social media. They didn't even have the benefit of that. And so Top Model felt like it was the only way to get on. But what you're saying is absolutely true. How many influencer models do we know about? How many brands are actually going to the influencers and saying, okay, we want you in this campaign? How many models are able to sort of go and say my portfolio is my Instagram page, right? That's something that's fairly new, but that wasn't around when this show came on. Although interestingly, Top Model was on for 24 seasons. It was on for a long time, 15 years. And so there's a time where you start to see that wait a minute, social media is on the rise. And so Top Model starts to incorporate that on the show. So they have a social media aspect where the models are being voted on by the social media audience. And so you could even see Top Model trying to incorporate how things were changing in the real world outside of the show.
Wow. Now, ANTM, I want to talk about the relationship between beauty and just with beauty, period. I mean, ANTM sold beauty as transformation, new hair, new body, new face. But for a generation of young women, it also kind of normalized things like disapproval, editing, even shame. What do you think the show taught us, really not about beauty, but our relationship to it? Absolutely.
I think one thing, and this is true, ANTM taught us that our relationship to beauty is currency. It can get us the things we want. But it also taught us that it was connected to somehow moral character, right? We would see certain contestants, plus size contestants. I think about someone like Robin, who was on Cycle 1. She was the only curvy model on that season. I don't think most people would consider her plus size in the real world, but in the real world, in the world of modeling, she was. And Robin was beautiful, of course, but Robin was also a villain on that season. She was a diva. And the fact that she was a plus size Black woman, I think, has something that there's something to do with that, right? I also think about how that show would sort of talk to the models about gaining weight or losing weight. You need to make better choices. It made it like it's a moral decision. It made it like there's something wrong with you because you haven't lost weight or you are not eating the right things. And I think that sort of taught a generation of young women that the way we look is somehow tied to who we are as a person, who we are on the inside, and our value and our worth, especially when a show like this, where it's the most worthy girl gets to have all her dreams come true. But how do we determine that worth? How pretty are you? How pretty can you look in a picture? How skinny can you be? And that was a horrible message. And it was a part of it. I won't say Top Model made it up, right? It was certainly a part of the culture, and especially in the early 2000s. But that taught a whole generation of millennial women in my age bracket, that what matters the most about us is how we look.
Mm. What do you think the show, as it evolved and as you get into the work that you've been covering, what did the show say about us, about viewers of this show for 24 seasons, 15 years?
I'm so glad you asked that, because part of this the curse is also on us, right? We were willing to watch this stuff, right? Maybe we could all say, we didn't know where it was going. We didn't know in the first seasons, but it went on for a long time because people were watching it, because we were entertained by these things, right? And shows like Top Model, not just Top Model, but they sort of bred a whole nother line of other reality shows, like reality. I'm a fan. I'm still a fan myself. Mm-hmm. But reality TV is huge. It's a lot of people's guilty pleasure. What's an interesting thing I found is that if you do surveys and ask people, do you watch reality TV? A lot of people say, no, not really, not. But then if you look at the numbers, it tells that a lot of us are watching. And a show like Top Model sort of bred that. They're the ones who sort of gave us the next generation of these sort of shows. And tells us that, like, we want to see people suffer. We want to see them go through bad things. We also want to see an underdog triumph. We want to see those sort of stories, but we want to see real people go through ridiculous stuff, right? It's exciting. It's stuff we wouldn't necessarily be going through in our real lives, but it's under the guise of reality. And so I think that's a big part. And then I'd say the other part is that we often see beautiful people as disposable. We think, oh, these beautiful girls, what problems could they really have? You know, like, oh, she's tall, she's pretty, she's young. And so I don't mind seeing her crying. I don't mind seeing her made out to be a villain.
She'll be fine.
She'll be fine. But these are real people. Mm-hmm. And some of them were not fine, you know?
Yeah, you know, reality TV kind of banks on the idea that the fine print will stay unread, right? But the moment someone tells the truth outside the show, like what you're doing, I feel like the real story begins. What have you uncovered about the contracts, the edits, the rules, the behind the scenes mechanics that shape the stories that we thought were one way and turns out they were another?
Absolutely. So the contract is a whole thing. We get into the contract a lot on this show. One thing I found interesting is sometimes we think, oh, well, the camera can't make you do something you didn't do. Right? The edit can't make you do something you didn't do. But the contract lays out explicitly that the footage that they got could be edited and used in whichever way they want to tell a story accurately or inaccurately, right? It straight up says in the contract, we don't have to tell the truth about you. The contract also gave ANTM the right to revoke a win if they decide that someone is not the moral winner that they wanted. And we get into that. That actually happened on the All-Star season. One model was awarded the win. She went home. They dug up something in her past and said, we're taking your win away. We're going to give it to somebody else. She tried to fight it, but the contract laid out, we can do that. The contract said that the models were not entitled to any payment, right? They got a very small per diem that ranged from like $48 a day to $12 a day, and they had to buy their own food. And no matter how many millions and millions and millions of dollars Tyra, producers of the network, makes from the show, the contract says you can't make a dime over this. The contract sort of gave the show the ability to use people's psychiatric evaluations. That's something that happens in a casting process, right? I didn't know this going into this podcast. Most reality shows do a psych eval. They want to make sure you're not going to get up there and like start beating people up or, you know, harm yourself, harm others. Well,
remember back in the day, you're probably too young to remember this, but remember the show Jenny Jones?
I do remember Jenny Jones.
There was a guest that came on and straight up like unalived someone based on an appearance on it. So they're like, what just happened? And I imagine that was just like, well, we got to figure a way to protect everyone from something like this, right?
Absolutely. We actually talked to the not the psychiatrist for ANTM, but he was the psychologist on Survivor. So the first season of Survivor, he was that guy. So he's like the first reality TV psychologist. Although I'm sure what happened on Jenny Jones was like the catalyst for like, okay, wait a minute. Yeah. When we're bringing real people on, some real stuff can happen. So we found out in the contracts, it didn't say it explicitly, but we were able to look at it and connect it. What was dug up in the psychological evaluations could be used by producers to produce the show. So if you shared, this is my deepest, darkest trauma that happened, and I think I'm just telling you, the psychologist, so you can know, they can go say, hey, you know, here's this file, here's this terrible thing that happened to them, put it in a storyline, bring it up, ask them about it. And that happened on the show.
Wow. You spoke to dozens of people, contestants, producers, crew. Some were ready to talk, others maybe not so much. What was the hardest truth that you learned that didn't make it into the show, but like still haunts you, Bridget?
A hardest truth that didn't make it into the show. We put a lot of what we heard on the show. There's one thing that I think I wish we could have done a deeper dive on, and it's reality TV's connection to like psychological experiments is the best way I could sort of put it. We do have a bonus episode that's going to explore some of the history, but I talked to some of the models who explain like stuff like being on ice. That's like when you're behind the scenes, you can't talk to anybody. You can't talk to your fellow models. You can't talk to the producers. You're in like this isolation state. that we talked about some of the other behind the scenes rules in terms of not being able to befriend the producers, not being able to talk to crew members. You aren't able to sort of call people when you want to. You can't go outside when you want to. You don't really have any autonomy when you're on a reality show. And that has some deep connections to our sort of history in reality, but that goes back to, I don't want to get too professorial in here, but that goes back to our sort of fascination with psychological experiments out of World War II. There's like research that looks at that. So reality, it's quite literally a psychological experiment to see how people will act when put in these really bizarre situations that are bizarre on screen, but also bizarre behind the scenes because they are not living like real people live. And that was super interesting and disturbing. That I wish we could have talked a little bit more about.
Crazy. Yeah. I know. We need to make an addendum to that. That is so fascinating. You do such a good job on this. And it's wild. Like, you feel the producers, like when you think about The Bachelor looking for the ones that are, going to cry or going to this or going to that. I mean, it's like they're really looking for just the darkest things to kind of exploit. Did you ever find out about, you got a lot of beautiful women and maybe some vulnerable women. Did you ever find out of like people hooking up and producers getting close with the models?
Well, okay, that's something I could do in there. I did talk to a crew member. He was a great resource. We talked to him for like 4 hours, and I was like, nobody has ever talked to this guy about this show ever. And so he's going to tell me everything. Now, there were strict rules that the producers and crew members were not supposed to have relationships, not even speak to the models.
Yeah, but they got rules. They got rules in prison, girl, too.
I was gonna say, but apparently people were not following those rules. I can't say because we're up, some of it, I don't know if he was at liberty to say who. Right. But there were some models who may have made some advances to him that he was not able to act on because of time and place, not because of the rules per se. But I think you're like, think about this. Like, you're in this house with these same 10, 12, 13, 14 people. You have little contact with the outside world. Like, people, you're gonna, and that producer, that guy over there, holding the cameras looking kind of cute. Like, these things are gonna happen. And so I do think some of that did happen behind the scenes.
Bridget Armstrong. Wow, this is something. We got all the links to the show and everything. I really enjoyed talking to you, Bridget.
I enjoyed talking to you too. Thanks so much, Adam.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
All right, big thanks to Bridget. You can find Curse of, America's Next Top Model, wherever you get your podcasts, especially on iHeartRadio. And to learn more about Bridget, her work, check out the show notes. Got them all there. All right, it is Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. Beautiful weekend. Looking forward to next week as we continue celebrating Arttober in our partnership with the city of San Luis Obispo. I am stoked to welcome the Opera Slow in studio. The Lobro Studios on Monday. I can't wait. You can tell. We're going to have them in studio. Maybe they'll sing a little bit. It's the perfect acoustics for a little vocals. We'll see if we can't get the slow opera slow, I should say, to do a little bit of their Hansel and Gretel, which is a performance coming up in about a week. So we will celebrate them on Monday. Let me tell you about my friends Life Elements, because I am so happy that they support local broadcasting, that they just do what they do, the healing that they provide. There's a little spot in Atascadero you might never notice if you weren't looking for it, tucked in the back corner of a plaza, 7425 El Camino Real. It is like a skincare speakeasy, except instead of cocktails, they're serving up maybe hand-whipped this, arnica that, calendula this, broad spectrum CBD that. These topicals, they really work. Life Elements, it's incredible what they do. Everything is cruelty-free, plant-based, really made with healing in mind. Small batch. Encourage you to check out their stuff, 7425 El Camino Real. Check them out in person. Meet them because they're great, great people. But if you're online, you can check them out anywhere. Anywhere you're listening to this, if you're not near Atascadero, lifeelements.com. While you're there, use the promo code ADAM, save 15%, and let them know you heard them on Up and Adam. If you aren't around their spot, you can also check out their stuff at The Hive in Arroyo Grande, the general store, downtown Paso, and of course, lifeelements.com. Let them know You heard them on Up and Adam. All right, I hope you are ready for a fantastic weekend. I know I am. Thanks to our friends Moonshiner Collective for original music on the show called Start Again. To our friends at Tamber Winery, who are still knee-deep in harvest, as a lot of our winemaking friends are. You can taste their wines in the village of Arroyo Grande. They're world-class wines. Love them. Check out that Leedy Vocals Pinot Noir. They're sparkling Albarino. So good. TamberWinery.com. I thank them for the Tamber Lobro Studios. I also thank you for one, just being you. You're awesome the way you are. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. But for connecting here, that really means a lot. And taking time to rate, review, subscribe, especially on Apple Podcasts if you can, means a ton. Can you tell I'm excited for the opera to come in on Monday? Have a great weekend. Till then, I'm Adam Montiel. Appreciate you more than you know. Thank you for being Up and Adam.